My name is Commander Mariusz Rosek, and I'm an oral maxillofacial surgeon in the Chicago area at a private group at Chicago Surgical Specialists. I'm also on staff at Loyola University Medical Center and Edward Hines Jr. VA, where I teach the oral maxillofacial surgery and dental residents. I'm also a reservist where I drill at Great Lakes, and I'm involved in a lot of the mass casualty trauma scenarios that we developed to teach our reservists and various units. I will talk about virtual reality based simulation for trauma scenarios, as well as the development of the technology and the current state of the art. We'll talk a little bit about the virtual reality vocabulary, explore the brief history of VR development, and explore the applications in medicine, particularly the immersive training and application to trauma. Virtual reality environments are computer generated, simulated worlds that users can interact with in a seemingly real or physical way. They're created through the use of virtual reality technology and experience through specialized headsets and haptic feedback sensors. One of the main features of a VR environment is the ability to immerse the user in a fully realized three-dimensional world where they can interact with various objects. This is achieved through advanced computer-generated imagery, and users interact in the virtual world through head-mounted displays, which are motion tracked and control the world through and the objects in the world through hand controllers or gloves. The goal is to create a sense of presence inside a digital world where a user can interact with the environment as well as the objects. A brief history of VR development. So that technology has been developed over the years. In the 1950s and 60s, when television really went mainstream, people have tried to develop more experienced theater, such as Morton Hellick's Sensorama, which was basically a box where the user could watch short films while engaging in other senses, including sight, sound, smell, and touch. So this was, you can see how bulky this was, and this was obviously no computer technology involved in this, but people have tried to expand beyond the two-dimensional image of movies and TV. The first head-mounted displays was developed by at MIT at Evan Sutherland. It was called the Sword of Damocles because it was hanging off from the ceiling. It was so heavy, and it was the first attempt to have some sort of visor or glasses where that the user could look through. In the 80s, Jaron Lanier really popularized the term virtual reality through the company at VPL Research that created data gloves and very early VR goggles, which were still kind of crude in design. In 1985, NASA's Ames Research Center developed kind of the first virtual reality installation, the View device, and they were developing this to be able to control and drive remote rovers. That led to the development of the Cave, which was that Cave automatic virtual environment, which was basically a kind of surround screen with multiple projectors projecting left, right, front, and behind the user views where the user can turn and they can look in all different directions. Obviously, there was not a lot of haptic feedback technology at that time, so this was still sort of limited, but this was the first kind of full surround view in a virtual world. And this was available once the technology started to catch up and the computer technology became advanced enough. This was the first widespread, in the 90s was the first widespread commercial release of consumer headsets, and the very first crude headsets were the Nintendo Virtual Boy and Sega VR headset, which were designed for gaming, because a lot of this technology developed from the gaming industry. You can see how crude this was, that very pixelated red monochrome one color image. These only saw very limited success, and part of it was because there were much better gaming systems being developed simultaneously. But this was a first attempt at kind of a 3D world immersion. Things really took off after 2010 and especially after 2014. Palmer Luckey designed the first prototype of the Oculus Rift and developed the technology over the next couple of years. In 2014, Facebook, now Meta, purchased the Oculus company for approximately $2 billion and really started advanced development. And by this time, the computer technology and particularly three-dimensional imaging has gotten advanced enough where the computers could handle the enormous amounts of data and processing required. In 2016, all the big tech firms, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Sony, Samsung, had dedicated AR or augmented reality and virtual reality groups, and they all started developing headsets with location tracking release where it could track the user's head in 3 dimensions. This is the buy-in concept that we talked about, where the technology really became disruptive from a few years ago. The computer technology finally was good enough where the 3D imaging finally caught up and allowed for very rapid development. In 2019 to 2020, inside-out tracking compared to external outside-in tracking was developed, where infrared sensors could just track the user's head. They could track the user's eye movements from inside the headset. This allowed for standalone virtual headsets. And the current technology, which is basically the Meta Quest series, the Apple Vision Pro came out a couple of years ago, and PlayStation VR. The cost of these headsets significantly dropped in price, where for just a few $100s, you can get an entry-level Meta Quest up to $600 for the Quest 3 and a couple $1,000s for the Apple Vision Pro. And these are still under development, and the technology continues to advance. I'll talk a little bit about the tools required for the current state of the art in virtual reality. So part of this is the augmented reality, which is a type of technology that shows you an enhanced version of the real world around you. So this could be an interaction between the virtual world and the real world, where it could be overlaid by digital augmentation in some of these headsets. For example, you're looking at an empty field where AR can show you a rendering of your dream house in the field, and this has definite implications on some of our trauma training, where kind of real world scenarios can be used. An avatar is the representation of the user or character within the virtual reality environment that you can move through and interact with. Co-located multiplayers are a key concept in VR because this allows for multiple players or multiple users to interact in the same environment, in the same space with each other, as well as the same objects. For example, you can have a patient, multiple sailors or multiple soldiers treating that casualty, as we'll talk about a little bit later. Gamification is a concept that refers to the use of game design elements and kind of incorporating some of the concepts from the games where a lot of this technology was developed for. For example, points can be used in evaluation systems and as a reward mechanism. And this has a particular impact on the current population of our new recruits. Haptic feedback is a key to VR technology. It's basically touch technology that provides simulated physical feedback. For example, vibrations of the keyboard, hand sensors, and it allows you for more physical interaction with the virtual world. You can actually have feedback where force feedback, so you can feel the weight of objects and it makes that interaction a little bit more realistic. Motion tracking is key. It's a technology that allows the computer or device to detect and record the movement of an object or the person. They can track your head through optical feedback, inertial motion tracking, and acoustic motion tracking as well, with multiple objects. Inertial feedback uses various accelerometers, gyroscopes to detect the movement and orientation of an object. This can track the user, their hands, and interact with that environment. The holodeck or VR environment is a kind of a fictional concept from the term was borrowed from the Star Trek franchise, where you can create a immersive space where multiple individuals can interact. For example, a trauma environment or an operating room, where you can go anywhere in that space and interact with all the objects. So applications in medicine. The beginning of VR in medicine was designed for simple anatomy education. For example, this is the more simpler side of the spectrum, where you can get a three-dimensional rendering of a body or a cadaver that students can scroll through in different layers, zoom in, zoom out, and basically learn anatomy in a much more advanced, clean environment, especially in the world of limited resources. And this allows much bigger access to those resources and advanced learning. Practical procedures for training and surgery. VR has been used significantly in surgery, where residents can practice procedures. We use it in facial surgery for surgical planning. Basically, we can do the whole operation on a three-dimensional model. And then the current technology over the last couple of years, so this has been around for about 10 years, and the current technology allows for 3D printing of custom plates that actually reproduce the exact surgery we performed on the 3D model onto the actual surgery. So the movements of the bone are very precise and exact. And finally, simulation, which is what we're going to focus the rest of the presentation on. You can model very complex scenarios with multiple interactions, multiple members, and particularly difficult and austere environments in trauma practice. This is used in engineering design, and technology has been used in the military. And we'll talk about one particular company. SIMAX is probably the most advanced application of this technology in trauma simulation. And overall in medical simulation. It's really the only medical VR product that is cross-platform, running on multiple major headsets, and you can run this completely wirelessly without the internet from your laptop, or even on battery power, which can be done on remote environments, which is particularly significant for those of us in the military. So this is their platform. They have a virtual reality medical simulation platform with high fidelity digital simulations in the VR environment. They're fully immersive. You don't need a lab, basically just a headset and access to their platform. There's over 400 different patient models that they developed, over 1,000 simulations, and unique settings. So this is sort of what the platforms look like. So one of their applications is nursing education, nursing essentials. Students can learn basic skills before they get into the clinical settings to make them more familiar with both the environment and how patient interactions might go. So they can learn the basic concepts and go through the motions and procedures before actually encountering a real patient. It's very difficult to practice some of these procedures before you get into the clinical setting, but the VR can actually help them get through the motions and become more proficient, at least at the various steps before actually encountering real patients. So there's a whole library of scenarios that has been developed, and by signing on to their platform, universities and schools can access multiple scenarios, and this is both for civilian, EMS, nursing, and physicians, for provider training, as well as the military. And we'll talk about the specific military applications on the next slide. But they have a whole library of various scenarios, from simple to very advanced, that they have developed over the years. So specific military applications. There's a mass casualty scenarios for incident triage that can be developed. This was developed in conjunction with USIS. And the simulated mass casualty scenario has multiple victims, and these can be specifically to more rare scenarios that are very difficult to train for. For example, pediatric traumatic brain injury, critical care medicine, and mass casualty scenario can involve both military combatant casualties as well as civilian casualties, all in the same setting. These can involve multiple players that can interact simultaneously. You can practice casualty triage, moving casualties to different collection points, and then performing, basically teach CCC in a scenario such as a blast injury, performing the basic combat casualty care at the point of injury, can be simulated under fire, where the casualty can then be moved, and all of this can be simulated within this virtual reality environment. This is an example of the scenario at a civilian airport. TCCC mass casualty scenarios, penetrating trauma scenarios, and severe head injury scenarios, and these can be simulated under combat stress, austere environments. You can simulate a very tight space, such as ship quarters, where you have to move casualties, nighttime, inclement weather. All of these parameters can be changed in these scenarios. This is an example of the penetrating trauma scenario. There's a quick description of the scenario, learning objectives. Each of these scenarios have specific objectives. These can be used for evaluation and standardization of training. You can have the members go through the scenario multiple times to see how they improve over time. And again, repetition is key in a trauma setting to learn the motions and treat the patient more efficiently. So I think the learners can apply basically the March protocol, treat the active hemorrhage, do a quick assessment, pack the wounds, and then move the casualty to the next higher level of care. I just put in the requirements of what kind of hardware and software is required, and you can see it's relatively basic. A relatively powerful laptop can easily run these scenarios, so you don't need a lot of specific equipment other than the headset and hand controllers, as well as a laptop, and this can be run anywhere. And it can also be run with various learners, and this is part of the Valor program, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. So CIMEX has developed a lot of this technology and partnered with the U.S. Air Force to create the virtual advancement of learning and operational readiness, or the Valor program. They have developed specific military scenarios for TCCC, CBRNE, en route care, as well as EMS civilian scenarios that correlate with these. They recently received a $20 million DoD grant and have deployed this at over 50 DoD units throughout the military. The system enables very high quality, repeatable, and accessible training in very realistic scenarios. There are scenarios that treat point of injury, like I just showed, the TCCC scenario at role 1. The same casualty can then be moved to role 2 and role 3. En route care can be administered, which is a key goal for the Navy and prolonged casualty evacuation times now, as well as more advanced treatment of the definitive NTF. And the same casualty can progress through the different scenarios. For example, you can have a casualty and en route care at on an airplane during evacuation, or on a shipboard. There's a scenario in a Role 2 facility in the field, and again, prolonged casualty care with a respirator in the bottom corner here. These are very high consequence situations which are very difficult to reproduce and very difficult to have members go through multiple times because of significant resources that would be required otherwise. This can be run by multiple members at the same time. They develop scenarios for burn resuscitation in various environments and mass casualties. You can increase repetitions and vary the scenarios depending on the skill of the learners. These can be modified in real time with their more advanced settings. So faculty and trainers can change the parameters and slightly modify the scenario every time the member goes through it. So what are the ballpark costs versus the physical mannequin? So this is very accessible. So the full access to the SimX virtual mannequin, including a wireless headset, costs about $1,000. Or universities can or institutions can access that per student per year, based on about $100 per student per year for some of the schools. The SimX VR medical simulation software pricing ranges from approximately $3,000 per headset per year for an enterprise or academic institution. The more advanced scenarios where they can be customizable, and patient care creation is available, where you can develop your own scenarios using their platform, can range from about $8,000 to $20,000 per case, depending on the complexity. And this is something that can be used for some of the combat casualty care in the military, where you can create various scenarios within that same platform. They're highly variable depending on the needs, and very complex. Comparing that to a physical mannequin-based high-fidelity simulator is about $50,000 to $250,000 per mannequin. And again, there's limitations of how many members can train at the same time, how many repetitions you can do in a given scenario. With a virtual reality, you can quickly reset the scenario and go through multiple repetitions with multiple members at the same time. So I actually had a chance to try this at the International Meeting for Simulation in Healthcare in San Antonio this past January. So this is me actually trying this, the SimX simulator. These are some of the developers and consultants from the military side. And it was actually quite realistic. We did a stab injury, provided care in the field, packed off the wound, did a needle decompression and chest seal application. Then the casualty was transferred to an ambulance, where the environment, kind of the holodeck, changed to inside the ambulance bay, where we provided additional care en route. And they had the different medications set there, different interactions. You can monitor vital signs for the patient. And again, this was en route care. And then the casualty could be transferred to the hospital for additional, more high-level interaction, more high-level interventions. So my user experience, it was an overall great concept. There's lots of flexibility. This was just one casualty with two of us interacting to treat this one casualty. This can obviously be expanded. The limitations I felt was still a bit clunky. There was some learning curve, but once you got used to it and figure out how to interact with the hand controllers with the different objects within the holodeck or the virtual environment, it became pretty smooth. It's not quite the same tactile haptic feedback as a real mannequin. So this is where I'm going to make a point that there still is a need for skills trainers for tasks such as IV placement, TCCC skills such as needle decompression, placing a chest seal, packing a wound. That cannot be replaced, but you can practice those skills virtually and become more efficient at it when you combine it with a low-cost skill trainer. The advantages are obviously the current population of new recruits. Whenever I go to the Navy base, I go through the exchange and I see the recruits and the young sailors playing video games or trying these virtual headsets on the gaming platforms. They grew up with this technology, so they're very natural users. So it's an easy transfer to have them train on something they're already used to playing with. There's a huge potential for assessment and evaluation. Again, bringing in the gamification strategy. If this is similar to a game they're already used to playing, they're going to be able to pick it up very quickly. And you can leverage that familiarity with the technology to increase and enhance their training. There's an enormous amount of customization and scenarios and modifications that can happen. And the instructors can change the parameters and modify the scenarios. So the current challenges are still cost. Some people can get motion sickness, but I haven't really noticed this very much. Battery life is getting better. Comfort for long-term use. The headsets are getting smaller, and the future possibilities are tremendous with more realistic, high-resolution graphics. Headset technology continues to develop. The haptics are getting better. Now there's full-body tracking, and as well as integration with AI. The artificial intelligence for development of scenarios has a huge potential. And austere environment development, dangerous situations can be easily practiced. So to conclude, we talked about an immersive experience concept, which began in the 50s and 60s to the modern VR with tremendous success after 2010. VR quickly expanded into medicine, education, and industry, and the future combines virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality for much more realistic scenarios. And the enhancement of trauma training in the military setting has tremendous potential. However, does not fully replace the need for hands-on real-world experiences. Thank you.